Welcome to the World Builders Anvil, episode 195. Check yourself before you wreck yourself on NaNoWriMo 2017. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. Welcome back. As always, my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And Rhymo Lee yours, I am Michael Miller.
Because he's the best rhymer around, and that's what NaNoWriMo is all about.
Rhymo, not rhymer.
Yeah,
Rhymo.
Rhymo! Yes. Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. This is the show where we talk about world building stuff most of the time. Sometimes, we get into pop culture. Sometimes we get into how to world build, but it's always about the world building at some level. And when I get to NaNoWriMo, it's something I like to do. And so this is something I like to see people succeed at. I think it's very doable. I've now got through 3 NaNoWriMos. I've written 3 novels in NaNoWriMo. My first one will hopefully get finished with editing, and I can actually get it out there sometime. I'm hoping. But beyond NaNoWriMo itself, one of the things we like to do at the World Builders Anvil is we like to support each other, So, and I want to give a big shout out to our group, the Fantasy World Builders Undercroft, right up front, and say thanks to them, because having them there and engaged in the group helps keep me engaged in getting my writing and my fantasy stuff done. So thank you very much, Undercroft. And we may actually have some new people to shout out, but admittedly, I haven't looked at it this week. So I'm gonna look. Well, I'll look at it while we're going, and I'm just mentioning it now. And I have a feeling they're going to come up again in this show. So
exactly, which is why I'll check into it while we're going through this. So
yep. So the thing we want to get off the bat right now is NaNoWriMo is one of those things where people can do. It's very achievable. It does not take too many words a day.
Let's back it up for just a quick second. Some people might not know what NaNoWriMo is. So NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, which is November. So what the basic gist is, there's a collective of people. It's an event. You sign up to do it, and you keep track of your word count. The goal is for you to sit down and write a 50,000 word novel, or more than 50,000 words, in 1 month. So this event is, people all over the world do it, and it's a lot of fun, and it is surprisingly more attainable than you may think. Even if you are not an accomplished writer, completing NaNoWriMo is a lot easier than you may realize. So that's what we're talking about today. And we've talked about it in the past, but for those of you that might have missed those prior episodes, that's what NaNoWriMo is.
Yeah, and to really kind of break it down is, if you could only work 1 hour a day for the 30 days, it would take about 28 words a minute in that hour to get through a 50,000 word count. 28 a minute for 1 hour a day. So if you work 2 hours, you cut that number in half. So, it comes to one of those things where there's a couple places I see people that usually get tripped up in NaNoWriMo. One, that they say they're going to do it and they really aren't committed to doing it, and that's okay. If you're not really committed, it does take some kind of commitment, especially if you're working full time. It does take some kind of commitment to get through it, because you're consistently writing towards the same story every day. But more commonly than not, there's a couple things that happen. One, people think they have an outline for a story in their head, and they do not. Michael is laughing a little bit because he's heard of people.
Well, do you happen to know the episode number?
I'm going to say 136. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's part 2 of something, probably of our NaNoWriMo episode from last year, I would imagine.
Well, we did a series last year for NaNoWriMo, and we did one on outlining, which we had decided that we would outline on the episode. So I had an idea, and I was like, this will be great. We'll do my outline on the episode. And I was and I didn't think I was, but I was completely underprepared to write an outline. I thought I had everything I needed, and then Jeff started asking me questions, and we started going through the outlining process, and I was totally wrong. I was totally unprepared. So
I get it completely, right? Because, it's like he had a really cool world that was really fleshed out. He had some characters that were really fleshed out. He had an idea of where he wanted the story to go, and he even could see probably quite well a couple really important scenes in there.
That's true.
And I think that's where a lot of people get caught. One of the first big places people get caught if they're really trying to get through it is they have enough in their head that they think they have an outline, and they don't go through the process of putting down an outline and going, okay, here are, let's say my 3 acts, and here are the chapters I think I'm going to talk about in there. This is what I want to accomplish each chapter. Really makes your life a lot easier. Allows you to get down and start focusing really well on it. And beyond that, I think the other big thing is people have lives. Oftentimes you have a full-time job. Many of us have families on top of a full-time job. Those 2 things can take an incredible amount of time and energy. And it's very easy to come home and be like, you know what? I don't want to do this first. I want to do something else. I'm just going to play a video game for a while. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to read a book or something else to relax and get out of my work day, or, and then I have to eat dinner. I have to take care of the kids. I have to go with the wife somewhere to do something. And lo and behold, every day I get through another day without any words, and where it's more than possible that you're not going to really write every day in NaNoWriMo. I typically do not. I usually like doing bulk writing where, it's like I'll have one heavy day a week where I'll write for probably 8 hours, and I will just crush out, lots of words in that period of time. And I'll fit in some extra hours here or there, maybe a couple hours a night here or there. But at this point now, I kind of have the luxury of, it's kind of my job at this point. So I can put more time than a lot of people can. So that's kind of unfair. But even before, when I was working a full-time job, my wife, really did a good job working with me on the weekends to give me the weekends to where, I had a minimum amount of things to do. I think like one of the 2 years I was recording with Mike. And so we recorded at that point, I believe we were recording on Saturdays. So I would lose Saturday morning and then through early afternoon because there's a kid I mentor. I'm not going to stop mentoring a kid for a month so I can write a novel. That's not part of the deal we came up with when I started mentoring the kids. So I did lose Saturday morning, but I would typically write several hours Saturday after I got back, usually after a nap, and then Sunday I would just pound out words. And, I would probably get, 15, 20,000 words done on just the weekend, and then a couple hours here or there during the week or whatever. But I really went through and I really looked at the time I had available. I budgeted my time like people would budget their money, so, it's a great thing to do, especially when you have a lot of time that's filled up, because there's certain things I couldn't get rid of. I couldn't not sleep. I get a lot more stuff done if I sleep 8 hours a night. It's just a fact. I'm like most people. Most people, even the people who think they don't need 8 hours, probably would perform better during their day if they got 7 or 8 hours of sleep. Now, those are I think the two big pitfalls to watch out for. But now, I think what you really need to do is first get focused. And if you go to garduel.com/bonus, there is going to be a focus guide. I've been giving out a focus guide for my other thing. Well, I've tweaked it for creatives and for creatives who essentially have to do another job. So it's been tweaked and focused a little bit. And if you go to garduel.com/focus, you'll go to a page and you sign up and give me your email address, and then it will allow you to download it right from the thank you page. So please, please, please go ahead and do that, because you have to learn how to focus yourself in these times. My wife would always accuse me of being a bit ADD because I have so many things that interest me. I have so many things that I want to do. And I've had to train myself to be able to focus for short periods of time, take some physical activity breaks, and then move on. And I get so much more done during the day than I ever have before, which is good because I need to get more and more done all the time. So go ahead and check that out. And then once you start working through and practicing, getting your focus better, just start practicing before you get to November, because you don't want to learn on the job of writing. But, you really got to take a moment and get to the meat of the episode. You have to sort of assess where you are, what you need to get the optimal writing, because there are going to be possibly events in your area for writers. Some people are really good at doing that. They can go to these groups and they can, write, 1,000 words an hour, even though there's a bunch of people around and some of those people are interacting with them.
Yeah, I can't do that. I need it to be more quiet. I need no auditory distractions really mess with me when I'm writing. So
I could do auditory distractions, but it has to be wordless music. I can't even have words in the music, or at least not words that I sing. So it's like, it's like I'll maybe listen to like classical music or something like that, and something to help get rid of other noise. Mm-hmm. And to have something expected going through my ears, but something that I'm not going to sing along to, something I'm not going to rock out to, because if I do that, then I'm not writing. But I do need sort of a prepped area. I need my desk to be clean of things that distract me. My world-building notebooks, if they're not involved in the project, get put away. My role-playing books get put away. Any empty game thing gets put away because I try and write before I celebrate. And video games are typically a celebration I like to give myself because I like playing video games too. So that's the big thing you have to do is you get time and your work area prepped for how you need it to be. Some people, if you're going to have like your sticky notes on the wall and that's how you brainstorm and that's all you have, you need them in a place to where you can see them from where you're going to write from. So you don't have to get up and go check it out. You containerize your writing area in a way that you can be productive. And if you have kids and if you have a spouse, make sure that they understand what the space is for at least. And inevitably there will be times where the sanctity of your writing time will be violated if you have a family. That's almost a given, but at least they understand that that they're taking you away from this when they're doing that. And if you have their buy-in, which we did talk about last year, and I'll try and link the show from last year where we talk about getting the family buy-in. Go ahead and try and get, especially your spouse's buy-in. Especially if they're little kids, they're gonna try. But I mean, kids are kids.
Yeah. Explain what you mean by buy-in.
So buy-in is essentially they agree to allow you to attempt this in that time. And so before that, you kind of need to know how much time you're going to use. So essentially, how much additional time they're going to lose from you. My wife has been very good with it. It will take some sucking up. It will take some other stuff outside of NaNoWriMo, like, hey, I'll do some extra time the next month and give you some, extra time because I'll watch the kid more, and I'll give you more time around Christmas because all of November, which is National Writing Novel Month, which we're quickly approaching, is going to be when I'm writing. And I know that I'm going to lose a little bit of time around Thanksgiving, but, what are things I can do ahead of time to get ready, and
so this would also include if you can do meal prep and talk to your spouse about how you're going to divvy up the chores for that month. If there's particular things that you normally do that take up a lot of time, maybe you ask your spouse if you can trade for a less time, costly chore.
Or there's a way I like to work called Pomodoro, which isn't perfect for writing, but I kind of use it for writing. And the idea is you work for 50 minutes and you take a 10-minute break where you physically move yourself. And so one of the strategies I've been using more recently is in my 10-minute breaks, I will vacuum or I'll empty and load the dishwasher. I will do those kind of activities, things that I don't really want to spend more than I don't honestly even want to spend 10 minutes on them, but they have to get done at some point. And, and it's amazing how much you can get done in 10 minutes if you know that it's over in 10 minutes. And it gets your body moving, the blood flowing again. So when you sit down and get back to what you're doing, you're not too distracted from what you're doing because you're doing mindless work like dusting or sweeping anyway. So you can kind of just spread out the way you're doing those things. I know my wife is super ecstatic when I do stuff like that for her because our house is typically cleaner when I actually do that. Because like me, she has other things that she would rather do. But think outside of the box, be creative, use that creativity to deal with some of the real world tasks. The biggest one, if you have those, honey-do list, try and get any projects that you're working on done before November. You don't want it like a room that needs to be painted sitting around for a whole month. I don't know about your spouse, but my spouse would go insane. If you're single, it doesn't matter as much because you can do whatever you're comfortable with. But when you're dealing with someone else, to me, it's just kind of rude to do that. But just be honest and say, like, hey, when I get through with this project, it's going to be close, and I'm not going to pick up anything until the next month. And usually if you're getting stuff done, your spouse should be willing to work with you. You're a team in life, people. You're a team. Now, and the next big thing is positively reinforce yourself for writing. The last thing that you want to do, or at least for me, if I sit down like after working 8 or 10 hours a day and I'll play a video game for an hour and then I'll start writing. I might as well just be honest with myself and say, I'm going to play video games tonight and not write. Because I'll sit down and I'll kind of zone out and I'll do that and I won't want to get up. So the thing is I'd have my time, come home, get through dinner. Once dinner's over, even if I'm not feeling it, I'll sit down for at least 15 minutes. We talked about this before too. Sit down for at least 15 minutes and type something. And if all you could type is blah, 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 do it for 15 minutes. And trust me, you'll start coming out with words that aren't just blah.
Yeah, you started off that point with positive encouragement and you got back into time management.
Yeah, I know.
So I wanted to try to guide it back to the encouraging bit. We try to do a lot to let our audience know and let our community know that you guys are amazing. Like, you guys have amazing ideas. What you have to share is worth sharing. Mm-hmm. What you have to write is worth reading. Like, you guys have great ideas. So don't hamper yourself. Don't be your own worst enemy by beating yourself up. Build yourself up. Tell yourself you're good enough. And we've said it before. You're not always going to write amazing things. That's fine. Write it anyway. And NaNoWriMo is a great exercise for this. Just write it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
And that's really one of the keys is just do it. But But, the point is when you take and spend that hour and maybe you only get 15 good minutes of writing in that hour. And trust me, especially after working full days, I get a lot of days where there's maybe 15 minutes worth of good work during the week. Now, when you get done, though, that's positively reinforce yourself. Like, that's the only time I had scheduled today to work on this. I'm done now. I've accomplished that task for today. It wasn't perfect, but now I'm going to go play the video game, or I'm going to go do the other creative thing, which for some reason all of a sudden seems so much more appealing that I start learning how to draw or do photography again during the month I'm trying to write, because inevitably fear will bring out every excuse to try and stop you. Like, oh, I know you really want to spend this month to try and write, but boy, I really wish I was trying to, take more photographs now. Well, do that, but just do that after you get through the time you have planned for writing. Like I said, if you can just plan 1 hour a day on average, it's a very achievable goal. 27 words an hour, 28 words an hour is not a lot.
Yeah, it's very attainable.
But just do the writing first. And trust me, there's some days that the writing's rewarding, and that reward activity becomes the writing, and maybe you get 2 or 3 hours of writing done in an evening after work. It's amazing once you get started, you remember how much you like doing it. You like the writing, you like the storytelling, but the fear is what's stopping you from starting. So do that first. When you get through all of your family obligations, when you get home, once you get through that, if you're not feeling it that night, go do the other creative activities, the reading, the drawing, the painting, whatever it is you like to do, or playing video games if you're like me. Do that after you spent your hour writing.
I want to talk a little bit about how to approach the project itself. I'm not a big fan of getting into NaNoWriMo and creating a world on the fly. Now, that's mostly because I'm not a gunslinger world builder. But for anyone that has never done NaNoWriMo before, I don't recommend that you create the world on the fly. You have 30 days to write 50,000 words. If you don't have a world built for this, or at least a strong idea of a world built for this project, then don't build one as you go. Yeah. I hate to say that because I'm a big fan of go for it, but I would rather encourage you and see you successfully complete the novel than half complete a world and half complete a novel.
Which kind of leads me into the next major point here, which is, do you have an outline prepped? And we've gone through exactly this kind of stuff I put into an outline, because I like to get enough in the outline to where I can kind of see the scenes playing out in my head. And it's going to change a little bit when I'm finally writing it down. But, the thing is, if you can kind of see the action a little bit, you have a taste for what the scene is before you start writing it, there's so much more easy to write. So, do a proper outline for NaNoWriMo, which does include having your world building elements done. And you're going to come up with other stuff too. So one of my suggestions is always to have an additional Word file. So if you come up with a new character because of the scene as you wrote it out needed a new character, make sure to keep those all tracked in a separate Word file or written down in a notebook or however works best for you. I use a separate Word file because I have a dual monitor, so I can have multiple things up on the screen at one time. You will inevitably come up with new characters and new props. Make quick notes when you come up with those. So if you have to reference them again, you have to go figure out what was the name of that sword I made up in chapter 4. Crap. And then you're going back, rereading chapter 4 to find that. And something I've actually done in the past too is I will use big brackets, usually a series of 3, and I will encase things sometimes in NaNoWriMo. So it will be like, okay, sword from chapter 3 and surrounded by 3 brackets on each side. So I can reference it later and go back and fix that because I couldn't remember the name and I didn't want to lose the flow. But I knew I didn't have the proper name for it. So, when you're coming up with an outline, you have to come up with a contingency for when you do develop new world building elements. Because sometimes, especially when you're writing, the story is going to go a little bit different direction. Sometimes I've been writing stories and I've come up with a great new idea for a scene that would really top off a chapter really well or start off a new chapter really well. And then I write it and I write the next chapter. Then I realize the chapter after that was the scene that I put in the other chapter. So, you know, the act of writing the story down, you know, it will change it and you have to be ready. But when you prepare your outline, maybe the thing you do is prepare and what are some shortcuts I can do so I can fine tune and get to it? Because ultimately, remember that we're writing a first draft and you have to be willing to write a first draft. The first draft isn't always the perfect words, the perfect delivery the villain gives to the person, to the protagonist at that important scene, but you need the words down that convey the conversation. The second draft is where you go through and you can really kind of perfect some of the language. But especially in NaNoWriMo writing, you're trying to get the story down, you know. As I like to say, and a lot of people in the group have sort of picked up, you want to puke out your first draft, especially in NaNoWriMo. You got to puke it out. Just all over Michael.
Preferably not all over Michael. I actually wrote Puke It Out on because I've got two monitors as well, and I had that written on my second monitor when I did NaNoWriMo last year, and it was a great motivator. I had to giggle about it because Jeff was always saying that, and I didn't think I would need the reminder, but I had it up on the monitor whenever I felt stuck, because inevitably when I got stuck, it was because I was overthinking something or because I was editing on the fly and I was thinking about my wording and my phrasing, and I'm like, no, just get it done. That's for stage 2. Like, just get it done. Don't worry if you write a whole chapter and you're like, oh, I don't like this chapter. Don't worry about it. You're going to get to edit it. You're going to get to go back through it. Just keep writing. You fix it in post, as they say.
You know, or sometimes, you know, it's like, you know, you want a character with really cool armor, and then you get down and you can kind of see it, but the words aren't coming out on paper. Just write down really cool armor. Because trust me, later on when you go back and read it, you're going to go, really cool armor. Oh, crap. Yeah. And you're going to have to, but you edit it. That's the reason why there are drafts. But, you know, especially in NaNoWriMo, get the story out. And if you're stuck on how the really cool armor looks, write a few words down and then go, his really cool armor. And that's why I like surrounding the things in 3 brackets when I know it's bad, because I can get to it easier to fix it. And sometimes I can fix it during NaNoWriMo because it's like I'll get done and my brain will be sort of done writing. And I don't want to start a next chapter that I know, especially if it's going to be a longer chapter or a longer scene. So sometimes I will go back and fix that when I've got the word count out for the day. The biggest thing that I think people could use to help themselves in this process is accountability. And go to our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Undercroft. And there will be 3 questions. You have to answer those or we will not let you in. You can actually put NaNoWriMo for each of the answers. And if all 3 answers are NaNoWriMo, I will assume you got it from this bonus XP for that day. We'll let you in. I'll probably be maybe putting a subgroup together, depending on how many people actually want to do it. But we'll try and do something for accountability during NaNoWriMo for the people who are taking part, because you know, really have to come to the group and saying, I don't have any writing planned today. My weekly word count is X, and I plan to get this much of it done today.
And let's talk about an accountability partner for a second. Basically, what that means is you have someone that you talk to each day, or each couple days, or whatever order you decide to do it in, and you keep each other honest. You keep each other on task. You know, you don't have to share your work with that person, but be in communication. Be willing to be encouraging to that person and be open to their encouragement to you, so that you can both succeed together. Because I find that when I've had a writing partner, and I'm not saying you have to get an accountability partner does not have to be a writing partner and vice versa.
No.
But in circumstances when I've worked with a writing partner, the writing partner ends up being an accountability partner, or at least by virtue of they write something and then they pass it off to you, and then you're like, oh, I have to write something now because they wrote something. Mm-hmm. Well, if you have an accountability partner and they're telling you, I wrote 500 words today, or I wrote 2,000 words today, and you haven't written anything, mm-hmm. you're going to be a little fired up, like, oh, I got to write something. I got to at least write something so that, because if he's writing, then I'm writing, or if she's writing, then I'm writing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, and you're probably not going to do a writing partner in NaNoWriMo, but an accountability partner, your whole job is to sit there and you have to, when the people you're working with, you have to follow up and be like, hey, did you get this done? And if not, just ask them why and say, is there something that, could improve this next time? Because there will be sometimes people don't get to their goals. It's not to judge them. It's just people have a tendency to come through when they have deadlines. And so if you have 30 deadlines during November instead of one,
or if they have an audience and you are their one-person audience.
That's right. Like, my whole audience is my accountability partner, because I have to come back here and bust myself out if I don't do it. But it's literally, it's about, having the respect for the people you're doing it with, to follow up with them and hold them honest and have them hold you honest. Because, how often do you wait and kind of like get it done at the end? Or you don't get through because something happened and you could have got it done, but something came up at the very, very last minute and you couldn't get through it. So these kind of things help prevent you from not getting it done, because it creates several opportunities to advance your word count, and where you have to go tell these people who you're working with that you didn't do it. And most people are very motivated not to do that. So come to the Undercroft, and like I said, we might create a subgroup for NaNoWriMo, because not everyone is a writer, and I understand that. But just to hold each other accountable for NaNoWriMo. And then schedule your month. And I am a very creative person. When I'm creative, I don't like being overscheduled. It's not like when I'm doing the business part of my work, where I'm very, very regimented. But the thing is, I need to take the time to go through the month and go, you know what? I'm probably not going to get a lot done on Thanksgiving. Probably very little done on Thanksgiving, especially if I'm going out with, extended family. Probably not going to get much done. So it's about being honest with your time, so you can actually come up with a better idea of how many words you need to get done by when. And usually my goal is to be done several days before the end of the month. Because inevitably, something might come up at the last moment, which causes you to fail. So, my goal is, if I can get done by the 25th, I'm done. And then I'm done with my goal for that year. I can start cleaning stuff up. I can feel better if I make that cool armor actually sound cool, and instead of just use the words cool armor. I can feel better about that. But, I can start my second draft if that's the next creative thing I want to do. Or I typically say to put it down for a few weeks at least before you go back to it. But, whatever works for you, do it. But, the thing is, always overshoot. So that way, if I fall short of getting done by the 25th, I got 5 days to make it up to still get my NaNoWriMo done. And that has happened to me last year, actually. That happened to me. So I thought I was going to be done earlier, and I was doing it on the podcast too, so I'd look like a real jerk if I didn't get it done. And some stuff came up, and so I didn't get done by my goal, but I got done on time because I had that fake goal for myself. So there's always bonus points if you can get done early. You still get done in a month. If you get done late, it's awesome. You get it done. You just didn't get it done for NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, and that's that is a huge point. And this gets back to not beating yourself up. If you didn't finish NaNoWriMo, but you still wrote a novel, you still wrote a novel. Like
Yes.
there's something to be said there. NaNoWriMo just is a really fun event to take part in, and it's a great way to give yourself an excuse and a motivation to complete a novel. And if you've never done it before, it's a really fun writing project. Like you don't and again, you don't have to publish it, you don't have to share it. It's just a fun thing to partake in.
I think the cool thing to keep in mind is, even if let's say it takes you 45 or 60 days, the next year you'll have the confidence that you can at least complete one, right? Because a lot of the things you're fighting against to get it done, especially the first novel, is I can't do it. And so getting the first novel done will get you a large step into being able to do it. And trust me, you have a lot better idea of how many words you can put out after you've done it one time. You get better at writing as you go after you've done it one time. The more you write, the better you get at it. Shocking, I know. But my last best piece of advice is write for bulk. So try and have at least a couple blocks a week where you have 4 or more hours of writing. Because especially when you start storytelling, it's fresh in your head and it's easier to get into the next scene because you know where you're coming from. Because like the 1 hour blocks, you're spending 10 or 15 minutes just kind of reviewing to make sure that you're picking up at the right spot, that you haven't dislocated the story in your time in between. So, especially if you're working and doing other stuff in between, make sure to try and get at least one good block of time in a week, because you're going to find out that most of your writing will get done in that block. Now, for the real world task of a day, this will be a shocking one. This is
a real important part here.
So the world building task for the day, because I think I might have just called it the real world task of the day, but for the world building task of the day is get your outline ready. Get your outline ready for NaNoWriMo 2017 if you're going to do it. You can follow me. I think it's at Gardul Writer is my, and I say at because of Twitter. I don't think you actually need the at symbol, but you can message me once you sign up on the NaNoWriMo site, or if you're in the Undercroft group, just let us know that you're doing it. Join the people who are doing the accountability stuff, help hold some other people accountable, and help motivate yourself to get it done.
As far as outlining goes, who's your main character? What's the main conflict? If there's a villain, who's the villain? If there's just some generic opposition that isn't an actual person, what's the opposition? What is the general arc of the story? Who are the main players? Just the general layout, the skeletal structure of what your tale is going to be.
Exactly. And I'll put the link in for the World Builders task to our episode on outlining for writing. And
now, the real world task for today is going to be start sucking up to your friends, your family, whoever you need to
the people
set yourself up.
Blowing off.
Yeah, for the people you're going to be blowing off. Yeah, that's good. And also sign up. Like go to NaNoWriMo.org and sign up, which is NaNoWriMo. So National Novel Writing Month. NaNoWriMo.org.
It's like National Writing Novel Month without a bunch of letters. And we won't tell you those letters, but if you go to the show notes, there's a link to it. And if you just search for National, NaNoWriMo, Google will probably correct you because this is a pretty big deal.
And Google will probably recognize what
when you start typing it in.
Yeah.
If you type in Nano and W, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that would be enough to get you to NaNoWriMo.
I would think so. So otherwise, anything that you might need from Amazon for NaNoWriMo, maybe a new laptop or what have you, go to www.gardul.com/Amazon. That just portals you straight to Amazon. Anything you buy after going through to Amazon that way helps out the show to help continue bringing you quality content such as this.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil. We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends, and so would they. If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting by showing them Stitcher or iTunes, or, best of all, just send them to our website, www.gardul.com. That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.